Welcome to the Veterinary Culture Lab, where science meets real-world application. I'm Andi Davison.
And I'm Josh Weissman. Together, we'll show you an evidence-based blueprint for renovating culture in your veterinary team, one episode at a time.
If you've ever walked out of a team meeting thinking, did anyone actually hear me? Then this one's for you. Because today, we're breaking down the science of high-quality listening and how feeling truly heard can shift your confidence, your teamwork, and the entire vibe of your hospital.
Hey, Andi Davison, how you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I made an office upgrade, Josh.
Oh, tell me about your office upgrade.
I know. I've been waiting to tell you this because I'm super excited about my office upgrade that I feel like you and probably a few of our listeners would be able to appreciate.
I'm ready.
I have purchased one of those ADHD office chairs that allows you to perch your body in a variety of positions. And you can sit crisscross. You can have a footrest. The footrest swivels around. You can put one foot up.
Wow.
You can fold your knee to the side. You can do all of these crazy sitting positions. And I've had this chair now for a couple of days, and it has been magical.
Magical. Have you settled on a favorite sitting position yet, or are you still experimenting with all the possibilities?
Well, no, that's the beauty of how my brain works, right? Like I don't want to sit in the same position for more, than 20 seconds. And so when I want to shift, I have so many different options. So I think the kind of knees bent backwards, like in a W shape is the winner, but having options is definitely primo chair experience.
That is amazing. That sounds like an absolutely glorious purchase, especially for somebody who spends an awful lot of time
I know.
in their
I
office.
was like, really? Yeah. Like work from home problems. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Work from home problems. First world work from home problems.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. I have something to share with you.
Ooh, let's hear.
It's random trivia stuff. I feel like you're kind of a random trivia person.
Lay it on me. That's always fun.
Okay. So I was just in Canada. Okay. And Canada is pretty cool because it's very cosmopolitan. Like there's a lot of people from a lot of different nationalities. And then, of course, there's like Quebec, which is, they speak French as their primary language. And that got me really interested in like languages. Do you know what the most commonly spoken language is in the world? Think about this. The whole world. What's the top spoken language?
Spanish?
No, it's not even in the top 2.
Oh.
So the most spoken language in the world is actually English. I was really surprised to hear this. Do you know what the second most is? So it's not Spanish. I just told you that.
Well, considering we were just talking about Quebec, I'm going to have to say French.
And it's a good guess, but it's not correct. The second most spoken language is Chinese. It's Mandarin. But here's what I was really surprised to hear. In the top 5 is Portuguese. Like Portuguese. Do you know how many people in the world speak Portuguese?
I do not.
About a Brazilian.
That's a lot of people. A Brazilian.
So everything that I told you up until the Brazilian thing is actually true. English is the most commonly spoken language in the world, followed by Chinese. I don't remember where Spanish was exactly on the list. Give me just a second. 4th.
Cool. So I wasn't that far off.
No, you weren't that far off at all. So I'll give you a hint for number 3.
Oh, I'm going to guess number 3.
Go ahead.
Sarcasm.
It should be. Hindu is the 4th. Yeah. Random things. Well, Andi, I want to express my gratitude for the time that you took to listen to my very corny dad joke, because listening is actually what this episode is all about. I think we can both agree that for a while now, veterinary medicine has really focused a lot on communication skills, in particular as it applies to our clients, right? Like we teach things like frank communication. There's a lot of research coming out of the University of Guelph under Jason Coe about communication to clients and how that helps drive compliance, things like that. So we spend a lot of time. We teach our doctors, we teach technicians, we teach CSRs how to do things like ask great questions, listen really well, those kinds of things. Which is awesome, especially when it comes to things like shared decision-making for the benefit of the animals that we treat. If we're seeing a pet being able to work with that client alongside them is really essential to coming to a mutual decision for the best benefit of that pet. But doesn't it sometimes feel like we kind of apply these skills really well in the exam room, but maybe sometimes kind of forget to apply them back in treatment? Andi, have you ever felt like veterinary teams act one way with clients and then a very different way with each other?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I kind of feel like if I had $1 for every time I heard a veterinary team member say something about management or some version of something about management, like it's not worth sharing because they just won't listen anyway, I'd probably be living on the North Shore of Kauai already, which is why I'm super jazzed to share this paper. But before I do, I want to ask you a question. And I want you to take yourself back to your clinical practice days. Okay. Only this time, imagine one thing is really different about the practice or the hospital that you're working at. Everyone, especially the people in charge, they like really listen. They excel at deep, genuine listening. Okay. You share a concern, your manager sits down, they focus on you, they take time, they ask you some really great questions, and they take a real interest in understanding your perspective. You have a major success. I don't know, you ran anesthesia on an ancient goat, and not only did it go well, you never once let the nerves get the best of you, which, by the way, listeners, Andi would never be involved in anesthesia on an ancient goat. She would avoid that at all costs. But let's imagine that you did, and it went really, really well, right? So the next time a goat comes in for surgery, the hospital manager remembers. They remember how well you did, the skills that you used, the learning that you got. And so they pull you aside to comfort the nervous technician who's actually on surgery today. People seem to really listen deeply and genuinely in this hospital. Okay, so take yourself back there. You're working in that practice again, but the one thing that's different is that everybody listens really well. What changes for you?
I think the big thing that would change for me is knowing and realizing that I am making a difference that is contributing to everybody, right? The team, the patients, the clients, everything. And that I was a unique contributor to that difference. That I wasn't just a warm body, or I wasn't just there and just happened to not screw up the anesthesia protocol on a goat, which is the twitchiest thing ever for me, but that I was a part of the progress, that I was a part of something greater than myself, and that I was noticed and seen because of it.
Yeah, that's what I was listening to you talk about, like, feeling like a contributor and feeling like you really made a difference and made an impact. And I kept hearing in my head that word, I feel seen. That high quality listening makes you feel seen. And that if you had worked in a practice where this was universal, you would feel truly seen for who you are, for your unique strengths and qualities, for the magic that makes you Andi Davison.
I also, given the fact that anesthesia and goats make me twitch, if I'd felt more seen and if I felt like I was contributing to this case and to this client, I would be a lot more likely to step towards this case, right? One that makes me want to, even now, run screaming from. But knowing that I feel seen, knowing that I was a part of this success, knowing that I was a contributor, that would really make me want to kind of step up to that in the future and really own my position there and support others in a way that is productive, right? Not I have to, but I want to, because I really feel.
So I feel like what you're saying here is that if I worked in a practice where high quality listening happened, like truly, genuinely, deeply, high quality listening happened routinely, not only would I feel more seen, but feeling seen in that way would make me more willing to try new things, more adaptable to change, more proactive in helping and supporting others as well.
Absolutely.
That is super cool to hear. And my wish for you and for everybody that's listening to this episode is to have exactly that experience, because the science says it makes a huge difference. So today's paper that Andi and I are going to discuss is titled A Meta-Analytic Systematic Review and Theory of the Effects of Perceived Listening on Work Outcomes. And in this study, they basically asked, Does high quality listening make a difference in team performance and well-being? Spoiler alert, it does in really, really big ways. So how did they come to this conclusion? Well, the authors wanted to see how strongly listening within a team is linked to key work outcomes like relationship quality, workplace well-being, and a variety of performance metrics. They first conducted a large-scale systematic review and identified well over 100 prior studies that measured some form of listening. Some of them were self-rated, like I show up this way, I do this. And some of them were actual like 360-degree or perceived listening. So if I rated Andi on her quality of listening when her and I are working together. These papers also measured a whole wide variety of workplace outcomes. Then the study authors conducted a meta-analysis on over 600 individual effects across more than 400,000 observations. I mean, this is a cross-sectional, like a very, very large scale cross-sectional study. What they actually looked at, the measures, were things like utilizing a few validated assessments. Perceived listening was compared to outcomes such as job satisfaction, organizational commitment, turnover intention, burnout or exhaustion, task performance, teamwork, and adjustment to change. All the kinds of things that are really important to us in a veterinary practice or a veterinary organization. Here's where it gets really cool. Some of the key findings. Feeling listened to, so perceived listening, had a huge relationship to almost all of these outcomes. In fact, the Pearson's R was anywhere from 0.31, which is like mild to moderate. That was for the likelihood to burn out, less likely to burn out, all the way up to like 0.52 or happier at work. One thing that really stood out to me personally as I was looking through this paper, team members who rated their leaders as high quality listeners were significantly more likely to adapt well to changes in the workplace. Like, how many of our listeners out there find themselves feeling like, I know we need to make this change. Why can't the team get behind it? It seems like listening is actually an incredibly powerful tool for engendering that kind of buy-in to change. For me, the analogy that I kind of came up with as I went through this paper was high quality listening is kind of like adding contrast to a CT scan. When you add contrast, hidden pathways light up. Like you see things that you couldn't see without the contrast. It helps provide a deeper understanding that ends up building trust, clarity, and follow-through in the diagnosis and the prognosis. It's the same with listening. When we have these kinds of elements in place in the workplace, outcomes improve almost across the board. The thing is that I worry that too often leaders think that if they want a team that understands expectations and performs at their best, I think more often than not, leaders feel like they have to communicate more, right? The team doesn't get it. They're not bought in. I've got to talk more. I have to convince them. I have to share more, right? I know I've been there. Andi, have you ever been there? When you were like leading?
Like vigorously nodding, yeah.
Yes. If I just share more with them, right? Like then they'll understand. How many times have we heard leaders all the way from executives to hospital owners to technician leads boil with frustration as they say things like, oh, I've told them 100 times, or things like, we definitely talked about this at the last team meeting. Why don't they get it, right? Like, yeah, exactly. It happens to us all the time.
Yeah.
What this study is basically telling us is that strengthening our listening muscles, not our talking muscles, might actually be the catalyst to make a difference here. So, Andi, the advice here is essentially this. If you want people to feel motivated, talk less and listen more. I'm curious, from your perspective, why do you think listening is such a powerful driver of things like commitment in performance?
Well, it definitely stems from what we talked about earlier, right? The whole idea of feeling seen and feeling like a significant member of the team. But in thinking further about it, I think that invitation to the conversation is critical, right? You actually want to hear what I have to say. You value what I'm contributing. You want to hear my thoughts, my perspective. You want to know what I think. And being invited into that conversation, again, it makes you feel significant. It makes you feel seen, and it makes you feel valued. And to me, all of that leads to commitment, right? Because I want to stay in a place that values me, and it encourages me to do my best because I want to do the best work that I can for a team that values me.
I think you're really onto something. Somebody that you and I are both major fans of, Zach Mercurio, has a way of putting this. He says that for people to show value, they need to feel valued. For people to act significant, they need to feel significant. And I think that what you're saying is that listening, like really good listening, helps people feel and experience their value and significance, and then they're able to show up that way. For me, like as I've been thinking about this, as I was listening to you, I had this image of like a bottle of wine with a cork in it. Like the cork is essentially the need for validation, like the need to feel seen and understood and valued in the world. That's basically what validation is. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to the wine. Like oftentimes with leaders, we're trying to get people to do stuff. That's the wine. If we don't have the right like a corkscrew, or worse, we have a corkscrew that ends up breaking the cork in half, and half of it is still stuck in the bottle, right? Like it doesn't matter how much we scream and yell and tell people stuff. They don't feel validated. They don't get that cork removed, that experience of validation. The wine can't come out. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at there. Another thing that stood out to me was the massive impact that perceived listening seems to have on well-being. For example, people who reported, I feel listened to in this organization or by this leader, reported significantly higher levels of job satisfaction and much lower levels of job burnout, which is massive. Many veterinary organizations, we've seen this all the time. We've seen this for years now. And I don't want to admonish this. I think this is actually a really great thing. We've seen a lot of veterinary organizations, from individual private practices all the way up to massive, like global corporate entities, investing in well-being interventions, things like, EAPs or employee assistance programs, things like mindfulness training, yoga classes, fun team outings, stuff like that. Again, I want to be really clear. That stuff is great. I do wonder how much those things actually really move the needle when it comes to workplace well-being. And it turns out that some recent research, which we'll share a link to in the show notes, suggests that actually those individual level interventions, they may not be making that big a difference. This study, this meta-analysis on listening, tells us that training leaders on high-quality listening skills might actually be a very low-cost, low-lift, low-risk way to measurably improve workplace well-being in our veterinary teams, in part likely due to the potent impact that relational connection has on well-being. I think one of the sort of side effects of high-quality listening, if you think about this in your personal life, Andy, you're going to think of somebody. I'm going to say this out loud. You're going to think of somebody in your head. And if you want to say their name out loud, you're welcome to. This is the person I know will take the time to really hear me out.
I have a couple of
You've
people
got somebody in your mind
like that. Yep. Sam is one of them.
What a gift. What a gift. And I've met Sam, and that doesn't surprise me at all. Sam is fantastic.
She is.
It's a gift to have something like that in your life. And you feel a sense of kinship and closeness to somebody that hears you out that way, that listens to you, right? So there's this social connectedness thing. And you and I both know, we think back to the PERMA model and, the foundation of positive psychology and what underpins a lot of what we do. Relationships is one of the top predictor of positive life outcomes. And so if we can train our leaders in our practices and organizations to be just a little bit better at listening, not only are they going to have all those benefits we already talked about, but they're probably going to establish a closeness within the practice and that sense of interconnectedness that enhances well-being as well. Shifting gears here a little bit, Andy, another thing that kind of stood out from the paper, I want to ask you a question first before I talk a little bit about it. Can you think of a time in your clinical practice days when a misunderstanding resulted in a bit of a mess? Like, for example, I don't know, a patient handoff in which one person thought that they had actually shared the information, with the technician on the next shift or the next associate or whatever it might be. But the person that they did the handoff to actually heard something totally different. Can you think of a situation like that? Can you share a little bit about that?
My list is as long as a CVS receipt. Like, it goes on and on because, yes, that happens all the time. That's happened to me so many times. The one example that came to mind when I sat and thought about this actually comes from my days doing nonprofit spay neuter. And it was Gosh, it was a busy day. And I remember at the time thinking it was insane because it was early on in my time in this facet of vet med. We had 50 cats that had been dropped off by a local rescue. And I remember thinking, oh my God, 50 cats is so many cats. Really, it's not that many cats, right? For low cost spay and neuter, that's a regular old day. But on this day, we had 50 cats dropped off. And so, yeah, we were busy. We were trying to organize everything. We were coordinating surgeries and times and patients. There were carriers and crates lining the walls and the hallways of the very small practice that we worked out of. And it was lunchish time, right before lunch, right? You're tired, you're hungry, you can smell everybody else's food in the microwave. And one of the other technicians said to me, hey, can you grab the orange tabby in 15? That is not what I heard. I heard, hey, can you grab the tabby in 50? So I did. I grabbed the tabby in 50, got her all clipped, got her all prepped, moved her over to the table. Wrong cat. And the doc that was doing surgery was ready for a new. And he turned around, right, with his sterile gloves and his 15 blade ready to go for the neuter. And there was a ballless belly shaved and prepped on the table ready for him to go. And he's like, what's happening here? This is supposed to be a neuter. That's what I'm ready for. And, little Miss Tabby from 50 needed to be spayed. So, no, that wasn't like a huge disaster or a ridiculous dumpster fire, but it definitely caused frustration among the surgical team, a little bit of a snag in the role of the day. And, nonprofit spay neuter, it is all about efficiency. Time is everything. And that miscommunication slowed us all down. It definitely put a mood because not only were we hangry, Andi had screwed up and everybody had to be slow. And I just heard 50 tabby, 15 tabby. So we laugh about it now, but I remember how frustrating it was at the time, all because of a very simple miscommunication.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hashtag ballless belly.
That's what it was. Pink ballless belly.
I feel like there's a bumper sticker in our future. One thing that I was listening to that story and you're right. It didn't turn into a massive disaster. You figured it out. Obviously you didn't neuter the cat that needed to be spayed. Right. And you kind of got things, it caused frustration and, a little bit of a stumble in the day. It was a near miss. That's what Amy Edmondson would refer to this as a near miss. It was not an actual medical error, but it could have been. Mm-hmm. Right? It could have been. What if it was the other way around? What if in the rush of the chaos of 50 pets and you didn't quite understand what was being asked and you had grabbed a male cat and shaved the belly and thought that and the doctor turned around thinking I'm doing a spay and actually opened that abdomen, right? Like that. So this was a near miss. And that's the power of listening. It can help us avoid these things. It turns out that developing high quality listening skills, not just as leaders, but embedding it in our organization, normalizing listening practices and listening conversations, and in this case, listening checks, right, can help prevent these kinds of bumps in the road from happening in teams. Just imagine the difference it would make. I mean, you said when you thought about this, you had a list as long as a CVS receipt, right? That's just you. How many hundreds of thousands of people work in this profession in North America? How many CVS lists of near misses are there? Just improving listening can help prevent that.
Hey there. If this conversation is landing with you, I bet you aren't alone. Why not follow the podcast or share the episode with some of your fellow vet crew? Together, we can all be part of a community that believes that thriving in vet med is possible and actively works to build the profession we all deserve. And if you're ready to take the next step, check out our upcoming Flourish Academy Masterclass in cultivating positive team communication. It's linked in the show notes. Now, back to the Culture Lab.
Now, Andi, another thing I know about you, you're a big-time fan of curiosity. It's one of your favorite superpowers. It's one that you love to try and build up and help others build up. And I know you're a big fan of asking great questions, which is why I'm super excited to share that practicing curiosity is actually a high-quality listening skill. So I'm curious, why do you think curiosity helps people feel listened to?
Because the curiosity proves that you're listening to them. Because when you take the time to think about what you genuinely want to know more about, it proves that you're being listened to, that you're not just waiting, until that person is quiet so that you can share your opinion or your thoughts or what you think they need to do. If you're asking someone a curious question, it's because you've actually listened to what they've said and you genuinely want to know more about it.
I totally agree. So I think for me, a takeaway here is one way that we can embed listening in a culture could actually be to implement a curiosity practice, to like create a curiosity practice. For example, one thing, I've discussed with folks in the past is a 2-question rule. At shift change, during rounds, when the morning tech tells you about the hospitalized patient, you're required to ask at least 2 clarifying questions before moving on to the next patient. Or for conflict, when listening is really important, right? When you feel your blood start to boil because the doc said something to you that got you feeling defensive, you pause, you take a breath, and you ask that doctor 2 questions to better understand what they're actually after and where they're really coming from. Which brings us to the next segment. What is a vet leader or a team or an organization to do if they're like, okay, I'm convinced listening is the thing here. I want to renovate my culture to be better at listening. For me, this really starts with measuring it. Perceived listening matters most of all. And the thing about perception is that we can't always see it. We have to find a way to measure it. So in this case, how people feel listened to seems to matter more than how we think we are listening. The problem is we're not mind readers here. Mm-hmm. So we have to measure it. So I think things like including listening in 360s. So if we're doing an assessment on the team, on a leader, whatever it might be, definitely for people in leadership positions or in annual performance reviews of all team members, including listening measurements. So as with any 360, though, we've got to be clear about it, exactly what it is we're measuring, why we're measuring it, how it will be measured so people have an understanding and expectation, how the data is going to be presented to them, and what support will be provided after the assessment is completed. I think that 360s are a really, really great way to understand impact and how we're perceived by others, but they only work if they're delivered productively, supportively, and with a clear purpose. So we have to keep that in mind. The second thing that came to mind for me here is to train it. But we don't really train communication norms in organizations. What we do is we punish people who deviate from what we think the norm or expectation is. And then people are learning by punishment. And you and I both know that humans are animals, and animals don't learn very well by punishment. They learn by reward. So making high quality listening a part of the onboarding and ongoing training efforts, I think could be really valuable here. For example, break listening down into individual skills and then discuss as a team what those skills look like in our unique team or our unique hospital or our unique organization. And then set clearly observable behavioral expectations for how those skills can be expected to show up, when they'll be used, and where you should see them and use them in day-to-day interactions. And then when they happen, when people actually use the skills that we've trained and taught and tried to normalize, oh my gosh, celebrate the shit out of it. Mm-hmm. Like really, really celebrate it. And when they don't happen, find a respectful way to correct and redirect. Andi, when you think about what to you seem like skills of listening, obviously curiosity is one of them. We've already talked about it. Other than curiosity, what is an observable behavior that tells you this person is actually listening to me?
I love this because I think that it changes depending on the person, right? And it changes depending on the situation. And before I answer that, I am going to say that making this a part of the conversation ahead of time, like what you just recommended, right? Like breaking the skills down, making it a part of conversations and assessments. That's amazing because then you learn about how each individual is listening, what they're looking for to be validated that they are being listened to, and what could change in some of those different situations. It really helps keep us from making assumptions, and it contributes to our curiosity, right? Because we are curious about how people perceive being listened to. I love that. I think that's fabulous. Now, outside of curiosity, I think that there are a lot of different ways, at least for me, where I know that somebody is listening to me. The first one was easy peasy, right? The nonverbals, right? There's someone is looking at me. Someone is, making eye contact, nodding, that kind of thing. Like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like they're obviously quote unquote paying attention. But I think that it goes deeper than that, right? That maybe you stop what you're doing to listen to what I have to say, and I get that. We're all busy. There's always something going on, but there is power in stopping what you're doing and truly giving that person your attention. I think that that is a lovely way to show that you're actually listening to them. The other one that really is powerful for me is when somebody takes a moment to process or digest what I've said before they respond. So if they respond immediately, were they working on that response while I was talking? And were they just waiting for me to shut my mouth so they could tell me what I needed to do? If they wait a moment and process a little bit of what I'm saying, then they're actually listening to what I have to say. And those are two big ones that really kind of came to the forefront for me, even though nonverbals are cool and big. And I guess in theory, those could be nonverbals, but they're two big ones that really stand out for me.
Yeah, that's great. Oh man, I love all that stuff. So like there's a couple things that I'm taking away from what I'm hearing from you. The first one is that when you and I have one-on-ones, I should probably not be looking down at my phone. I should be looking at the screen and making eye contact with you, right? Like, yeah, but this, I mean, it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but this speaks to what I think you were referring to, that sometimes it depends on the person, but also it depends on the context. So for example, if, I don't know, you're working with a vet and they're in the middle of a TPLO and you just need to know if Fluffy is ready for discharge. You're poking your head into the OR. You're not expecting that vet to stop the procedure, turn and make eye contact with you and answer your question, right? But in a one-on-one, you are expecting that level of attention. And so I think beneath this is the you said that like it really means something to you when people stop and give you their focus. That shows, oh, that is a big indicator. This person is preparing to really listen to me. And so we could add to this that part of this creating the norms is actually talking through, when are the times when I don't need you to stop and look at me? When are the times when I do? And how do I convey that to you? How do I convey that need? Maybe you have a special word. I always think of Portlandia, the episode where they have the safe word cacao. Like, but you could have something like that, right? Like, so maybe instead of asking, is Fluffy ready for discharge? Like, you have a real serious conversation you need to have with that vet and it can't wait. And so you poke into the OR and you quietly say, cacao. Now the vet knows, okay, I actually have to pause what I'm doing and pay attention to what Andy's about to say, right? So that's part of this training it, having these conversations. I think that's really lovely. I also think that systematizing it is important. So creating clear, consistent opportunities for listening to happen. Instead of just hoping that it happens accidentally or praying that those opportunities will emerge, actually adding structure to make it happen. So adding structure to rounds where you have like a question reflection section as part of rounds, building in routine debriefs, especially after difficult situations like an unexpected emergency in your general practice or an unusual case, whatever that means to you. Hosting the occasional listening circle in which maybe a small group or a team, like for example, say the associate veterinarians, just get to share a concern or challenge one at a time, and the rest of the group takes the opportunity to practice deep listening. Scheduling routine, consistent one-on-ones and including listening prompts in those one-on-ones. Another great way to systematize it. And then last thing, reward it. If we really want to have listening happening, we have to find ways to incentivize it. We know that listening is a clear driver of team performance and well-being. This study is pretty robust in that finding. It should therefore be a part of performance evaluations, especially for people with power, especially those in leadership positions. So include it. Make their team's ratings of their listening skills actually count for a percentage of their overall performance evaluation. Of course, make the skills clear, make them measurable, support them in strengthening those skills, and reward them for developing and mastering them. And then when they fall short of expectations or they don't quite meet the mark, offer the coaching they need to improve, or consider, one of my favorite terms, liberating those who can't or won't develop these skills. The worst thing we can do is set a goal on a cultural norm and then persist in keeping somebody who cannot or will not deliver on that norm. People see that. Andi, a while back, you and I discovered the field of positive communication, and we became big-time fans of Julian Mirivel, who I think maybe you and I are going to have an opportunity to meet in person, and I'm really excited for that. One big way that Mirivel helped me personally rethink communication is through the power of listening. When I read his work and the work of others in the field of positive communication, it made me realize that effective, high-quality communication doesn't actually start with voice. It starts in our ears. It starts with listening. This study for me, it really solidified that belief, which is why we include listening as one of our primary skills in 2 of Flourish Academy's programs, our mini course, the 2-hour introduction to cultivating positive team communication, and our flagship program, the 20 race credit certificate in cultivating positive team communication. Folks can, of course, check those programs out on our website. We'll include some details in the show notes. And with that in mind, Andi, I am ready to practice my listening skills. Would you kindly share this week's Florida man story?
Ooh, I can, because this headline is worthy of a cacao. It's good. It's good. I need all your attention.
I'm ready and focused.
Yeah. This headline is Florida woman, which, first of all, right, whenever Florida woman shows up, you know it's going to be good because Florida woman's not screwing around. This headline is recent, and it comes to us from South Florida. The headline reads, Florida woman wins with 60 snake haul. Record 294 invasive pythons caught. So apparently in South Florida, there is a competition for people to go out and catch pythons that have been inappropriately released out into the wild, right? This is a problem in Florida. Yeah,
they're like an invasive species.
Exactly. And they're, wreaking havoc on the wildlife and all of that. And so Florida offers financial incentive to go out and capture these pythons. Well, there's a competition over a certain period of time where you can go out and catch as many as you can, and the person that catches the most wins the prize. The prize for this was, I think it was $10,000.
Oh
and
gosh.
This particular Florida woman caught 60 pythons in a 10-day period. 60 pythons. No. That is like nope rope. Hashtag nope rope. No way. Thank goodness for that Florida woman, because I am not.
Wow.
Right? 60 pythons in 10 days. Do not mess with that Florida woman.
I'm not ready to go so far as to say I love Florida, but I am fascinated by the state that you live in.
It is entertaining.
It is entertaining. That is a good one. Thank you for sharing this week's Florida woman, Andi.
Yes.
And thanks to all of you out there listening for tuning in for another episode of the Veterinary Culture Lab, where we talk about using science to renovate your culture. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
See you soon, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us in the Veterinary Culture Lab, powered by the science of workplace well-being and brought to you by Flourish Veterinary Consulting. If today's episode sparked an idea, made you smile, or got you thinking, hey, I should totally try that, let us know. What do you think? Be sure to subscribe, share, and remember, a thriving veterinary culture is possible, and you don't have to build it alone.